am paying customers, so I've decided to.
I'll take the bee. Alright,
I'll leave it.
I can tell you that's a solitary bee if you want to know. Lives by itself. If you build a little bee hotel, it'll live there.
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, I thought you were my sister.
Right, let's gather around here, folks.
First we will go with them. Yeah, they will visit. Then
Gather
we
around.
will go along.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then I'm going to swap side views so that I can cheat off of these sides. No, I'm kidding. So you can see the view. We have a gorgeous view.
So you'll be okay if we cover the sign?
Yeah, cover the sides. Let me just quickly. Yeah, come around, come in nice and close. That's it. Come on over on this side, folks. And yeah, for those of you who missed it, there's certain areas that I can guide, certain areas I can't. To give you an idea, here I can guide. Here I'm breaking the rules. So there you go. Well, welcome to Edinburgh Castle, folks. It's actually so warm. I can't keep this jacket. The first thing I'm going to talk about is not the castle, but is this gorgeous view behind us. You see a big body of water? This is not the ocean. This is actually an estuary on the River Forth. And in Scotland we call an estuary a firth. So that's the Firth of Forth. Yeah. It gets better, because you see that bit of land across the way? We've had people ask us all sorts of things about it. One time we got asked if that was Denmark. No, it's Scotland. I cannot comment. I cannot comment. I couldn't possibly comment.
From Florida. They were from Florida. That's who it was. Floridian.
Anyway, it's a bit of Scotland called Fife. So that's the Firth of Forth and Fife. And if you want to get across the Firth of Forth and Fife, there are some bridges, 3 of them. The first and oldest, well, if you don't know what to do with yourself and you've got another beautiful day like today, and you want to do something fun, you can head about half an hour out of town to a beautiful coastal town called South Queensferry, where there's an old red railway bridge, which is the Firth of Forth bridge over the Firth of Forth to Fife. When I said there's 3 of them, they built one more, that would be the Firth of Forth bridge over the Firth of Forth to Fife. Try saying that one 3 times fast. Yeah, it's hard, right? But moving on from the Firth of Forth and Fife to these cannons that are pointed over the Firth of Forth at Fife, which if you know anything about Fife, you will know they do deserve it. They did. They invented gold. No, I'm kidding. But if you do know anything about cannons, you might look at them and think they look a bit weird. They're quite small, they have wheels on the bottom, and there's a little hoop on the back. You might become more suspicious as to what's wrong with them if I tell you that the only time these particular cannons have been fired was during the Battle of Trafalgar, which if you know your Napoleonic War history, early 1800s, the Battle of Trafalgar was a naval battle. That's because these are naval cannons. The hoop on the back is to run a rope through, so when they get fired, the recoil takes them back on the wheels, the rope catches them, and you can reload them from the front. Without the rope, the recoil is about 15 feet. So you can imagine if we fired one today, none of us would be very happy. So why are they here? Well, it's thanks to a very special tourist, a lady called Queen Victoria, who after complaining that the castle didn't look like a castle, came here, stood where you're standing, and she said, "Where are all the cannons? How is a castle meant to defend itself without any cannons?" And the governor of the castle, he came to her and he said, "Well, your majesty, we don't need cannons. We've not been attacked in this castle in over 150 years. And besides, over that wall is a cliff, so no one's attacking us in that direction. And anyway, behind the cliff is Edinburgh. We don't need to point cannons at Edinburgh." Queen Victoria, she listened, she nodded. And then she said, "Fix it," and turned around and walked away. So they did the only thing they could on such short notice and borrowed cannons off of the Royal Navy. And they are borrowed. If the Navy wanted the cannons back, they could come and get them back. But again, credit where credit's due to Vicky, I love the cannons. They're so cool, right? Who doesn't love a cannon? There's actually only one real historic cannon in the castle called Mons Meg on the top. And it's so big that they used to let you put children inside. But they don't let you do that anymore though. You fire one child out of a cannon, health and safety goes crazy. Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's just a little bit of fun. No, but despite the fact that when Queen Victoria wanted these cannons, the castle hadn't been attacked in over 150 years. This was not the norm. This is actually the most attacked and besieged castle in all of the United Kingdom. One of the most attacked and besieged in all of Northern Europe. 26 sieges happened here. The longest of which lasted over 2 years. It was called the Lang Siege, which is Scots for the long siege. Of course it is, because we're deeply uncreative. We also had one only 30 minutes long, a group called the Covenanters. They came, they saw, the castle surrendered. Anyone want to guess what that siege was called? The short siege. Have you studied Scottish history before? That's crazy. How do you figure that out? Yeah, we had the long siege and we had the short siege. But I'm going to tell you about 2 other sieges that happened when those 2 lads out front, William Wallace and Robert the Bruce, were fighting against the English. The first of these sieges was in 1296.
You're that guy.
The king down in England was a man called Edward I, nicknamed the Hammer of Scots. He wasn't very popular. And he marched an army tens of thousands strong, one of the largest armies this island has ever seen, up north and laid siege to this castle. And what he did was he set up catapults around the outside and bombarded it for 3 straight days till the castle surrendered. So why did he do this? With such a gigantic army, why not just come crashing through the front door? Well, I'm going to put you in the mind of attackers on this castle. First thing you'll hit is not the gatehouse, because that wasn't there. It would be this portcullis here that we walked under. And you can spot a little detail about this portcullis. See, it's got 2 kinds of brick. And at the top it's got big flat sandstone rocks. What does that mean? Victorian, yes. Well done. This wasn't the particular portcullis that was there in 1296, but a remarkably similar one stood there without that top bit, because defenders could stand on top. You didn't need many people to keep this castle safe. The average garrison was around 40, but that was more than enough. So first thing you as attackers have to do is get through that portcullis, which you're going to do with a battering ram. And this isn't like in the movies where there's a fancy carving of a goat's head. It's a big log. A big log that you and your buddies are going to take. You're going to smash down that door. And then when you smash it down, there's a second door. And it's designed in such a way to get narrower, so you can't take the battering ram through, and instead have to tear it down with your bare hands, whatever tools and weapons you have on your person. The entire time, defenders are stood on top of that portcullis, raining things down on it. I'm sure you've all heard of boiling oil being poured on people, yeah? This is a myth, not true. Oil is expensive, and tasty, and useful. You can make soap out of oil. And contrary to what people think, they did have soap in the Middle Ages. They did wash themselves. They weren't stinky. No, what they often do is just drop big rocks on people's heads. You're up high, someone's down below you, you drop a rock on their head. Pretty good way of taking them out. Also, sometimes they pour boiling pitch, a kind of sticky tar. And some people claim, although take this one with a grain of salt, we're not 100% sure if this is true, but some people at the time claimed that they would pour boiling urine. Boiling pee. Ugh, right? Gross. But the worst of the worst was supposed to be burning sand. Now you've all been to the beach, right? You come home, and then 3 days later you're wearing clothes you weren't even wearing that day. You put your hand in your pocket and you're like, where'd all this sand come from? Sand gets everywhere. Up every sleeve, down every collar, into every nook and every cranny, and that burning sand is going to melt the flesh from your bones everywhere it touches. But say you survive having your skin melted off, and you end up here. Well, it's not smooth sailing, because what's behind us but a big old cliff. And at the top of the cliff, there was a wall. You're stuck here in this narrow passageway, while defenders are up there firing things down at you. Bows and crossbows. And the crossbows of this era aren't like the things you might have fired at an archery range where you can take it and load it with your hand. These were monsters. To load them, you need to put them down on the ground, put your foot through them, you get a lever that was called a goat's foot, put that in, and use the whole strength of your body to load it. Some were so heavy you actually needed a pulley system that you'd attach, and and wind the crossbow up. And the bows of this period aren't like the things you've seen at the Olympics. The average draw weight, the amount of weight needed to pull back the string on a war bow of this period was around 120 to 140 pounds. Some went as high as 240 pounds. You needed to train for years to even draw back the string. So unless you're very rich and can afford the best of the best armor and get very, very lucky struck in the exact right place, armor's doing nothing. And it's not like in the movies, arrows don't go they're silent. So people are just silently dropping dead on all sides of you. And you can't even do anything because since there's a wall, what can a crossbowman do but fire their shot, get down behind the wall and move somewhere else. Silent death on all sides. But say that you survive the skin melting off, you survive the silent death, and you make it all the way up to the slope. Who should be waiting for you but what we call hobblers? It's a fancy word for lads on horseback with pointy sticks who can charge through what's left of you and knock you down like bowling balls. So yeah, I'm not shocked that Edward decided not to risk his army and just attacked with catapults instead. But that's not to say that the only way to take this castle is an overwhelming force. You can also take it through wits. Which brings us to our second siege. The English hold this castle from 1296 to 1314, 18 years. And in 1314, Robert the Bruce is amassing his army, getting ready to make the final push against the English. And Robert the Bruce's nephew is a man called Thomas Randolph. Thomas wants to make a name for himself. So he writes a letter to his uncle Robert the Bruce and he says, "Uncle Bobby, I'll take Edinburgh Castle for you if you give me an army." Robert the Bruce writes back, "Sure thing, bud, no problem. Here's 40 men. 40 men to take this castle, but Randolph's not deterred. Because he has a secret weapon. A man who used to work here in the castle, while on guard duty for the English each night, would sneak down a steep, treacherous path down these cliffs behind me, down into the city, meet up with his lover, and then each morning he'd sneak back up the secret path, resume his post, as if nothing had happened. Which, if you are keeping track, does mean he never did a day of work in his life. And he had defected and was now on Randolph's side and had shared the location of this path. So Randolph waited. He waited and he waited for the perfect night. When the night was dark, the mist was thick, the wind and the rain were howling, and the poor frail hearts of those English soldiers could not stand out on these battlements too long. And he took 30 of his 40 men and started to scale that steep cliff path. They almost got caught when 2 English soldiers walked up to the wall behind us. If they'd only looked down, they would have seen the coming men. But instead, one turned to the other and says, "Look how far I can throw this rock." And then they went back to bed. But Randolph thinks this isn't enough, so he sends his last 10 men to the portcullis. Start banging their shields and spears, shouting, screaming. The English leap out of bed, see what's going on, and oh, it's 10 Scots. That's not even worth it. We'll just wait till they tire themselves out. And so with their guard well and truly let down, the 30 men hop over the wall, catch the English completely unawares, slit their throats, and quickly take the castle. Having taken it, he writes to his uncle Robert the Bruce. He says, "Uncle Bobby, took the castle, what should I do with it?" Robert the Bruce writes back, "Burn it down to the ground. We cannot risk it falling into English hands. But leave St. Margaret's Chapel untouched." So that's what he does. And there's a little plaque there carved into the stone, commemorating the siege. That says, "For Thomas Randolph, who recovered this castle in 1313. Remember I said the siege was in 1314? Just goes to show you cannot trust anything written here in the castle, even when it's written in stone. We're going to now move around the corner and go from standing in front of some cannons that don't work, and instead I'm going to tell you about a cannon that does work, if you follow me.